Welcome. You are listening to the second episode of The Dream Freaks, where we'll dive deep into the dreaming matrix to activate your dreams. Thank you for joining us. There have been many stories about the origins of humanity. The one we're about to cover today doesn't point to the bigger picture, but it does aim to explain why we might all be here in this world. And this theory fits perfectly into the digital age that we find ourselves in. But what if that's all it was? A reflection of where we are on our evolutionary journey, meaning the theory evolves as we evolve. Today we're going to explore this theory of life being a simulation through the lens of three conscious dreamers.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alejandro Salinas. I'm a dream guide, yoga teacher, and massage therapist in Chicago.
Hey guys, I'm Tree Carr, and I'm a dreaming guide, a death doula, and a tarot reader in London.
And I'm Jenniffer ClarOscura, and I'm a dream guide in New York, specializing in dream interpretation and dream work.
So, today we were talking about life is simulation. And one of
Yeah.
my favorite quotes from Dr. Stephen LaBerge, who's done a lot of great research on dreaming, he says that dreaming is perception without external sensory input, and that perception is dreaming with external sensory input. Basically, saying that our dreaming life is entirely subjective, that our dreams are entirely made up by our own brains. They're only for us to process, to see, to sense, and understand. And our waking life still carries all the subjectivity, but layered on top of that, we have external sensory input, creating this sort of shared dream, and that ultimately, right, what we are perceiving is really interpreted by the brain.
And yet there's the subject of consciousness, right? What is consciousness? The waking mind versus the dreaming mind, or at least what we consider is a dream versus waking reality, which is why this topic I think fascinates people because nobody's really sure if they can trust the brain.
Yeah, so it makes you think, where does consciousness come from? Does it originate biologically in the brain? Is it something that's external to the brain? Is it something that we tap into in a greater sort of a field, on a sort of like on a subatomic level? But I think we could all agree, probably, like that consciousness is a state of awareness, and it's an internal and an external awareness of our existence and our reality. But much like you said, Alejandro, it's a lot. It's We all perceive things very differently, and so we're all coming from the standpoint of our own personal perception of reality and consciousness.
Yeah. In the Tibetan tradition, they call the state of dualism and non-dualism. Non-duality is a state of rigpa, and that our perception arises ultimately from ignorance. And in our own brains, in our consciousness, so to speak, we create this dualism and separating things by, labeling things. And when we ultimately reach enlightenment or a state of non-dualism that we can achieve through the practice of dream yoga, of sleep yoga, through a variety of spiritual practices, we ultimately come to realize that everything is one solitary thing, and that nothing is really real or stable. And there's another term they call Maya, which is illusion, and that all things are illusory, not in the sense that things are fake, but in the sense they're illusory, in the sense that they're constantly changing and shifting and forever being created.
Maya is also magic.
Mm.
When I was younger, I didn't like this theory. Well, first of all, let me start. I think Tree and I grew up um, pre-digital age. It makes us sound like dinosaurs, but we did, we
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 are.
didn't grow up with an online world. It didn't exist. So this theory was nothing that we had heard. Maybe life as a dream was closer to that to us than life as a computer or something like technologically simulated. That in my 20s, when I finally got a hold of the online digital world, it was startling to me because the depth of my of what I believe is my soul, um, it was in combat with what is technology. And I think I still have this battle happening where I don't think it's that robotic and technological. If life is a simulation, it would be like a different sort of simulation, one that works with my soul, one that I signed up for, probably, and not something like a conspiracy theory where we're being kept from our true
Mm.
selves in another place. But, that's just my personal, that's how the beginnings of my perception with this theory when it first came out.
Yeah, when I first heard this theory, I thought it was kind of interesting because when I was a little kid, I used to play these sort of games of perception with myself. So I would do simple things like sit there and I would like look at my feet and I would look at them so long that I would feel so completely like detached from them and from my body. And I often thought like I feel like some weird, I'm in this weird alien flesh suit thing. So when the whole concept of is this a simulation came up, I often, go back to what I was thinking about it when I was a kid. And it made me sort of think, well, maybe we're in some sort of like organic, biological kind of technological simulation. I'm very living and breathing, and it's a mixture of organic and high advanced technology. So that did sort of cross my mind when when this theory was sort of
Mm.
proposed.
I always thought if it was a robot, it's more of an organic kind of like. That's so funny.
And Ale, did you have anything kind of similar to that when you were a kid?
I remember distinctly being in like first grade and being like, what if this is all a dream and we just like wake up from it? And later hearing a lot of philosophers talk about, life as a dream. I was introduced to the Matrix super young. I was like in seventh grade. And at the time, that didn't, I didn't fully understand it, but it definitely planted a lot of seeds that have since blossomed throughout my life. And back to Stephen LaBerge, he really had me questioning and even stop using the term reality because the dreams are as like real as our waking life, and our waking life is as dreamy as our dreaming lives, and that this
Totally.
external world we collectively find ourselves in obeys some basic rules, not unlike a simulation. The like gravity is a certain algorithm that works on our planet in a certain way, but outside of our singular planet works a different way until you get to a different planet, and that works a little bit differently there. And the way that light moves has its own pattern and rhythm to it. And that is one of the main things that we can use then to differentiate, to discern between our waking and dreaming states of mind, which as dreamers, we use a reality check. Like, how do we
Hmm.
really know whether, in the dream world, like there is no rules. It's like totally open. I think we all just watched The Matrix.
Yeah, last night. I haven't seen it since it was in the cinema in
Yeah.
1999.
I didn't get to watch it
Um,
actually, but I remember it very clearly. I mean, it was very shocking when I saw it. I was very inspired.
yeah, it's coming out again in theaters for like the 20th anniversary release. But And then the Matrix, Neo slowly comes to understand, just like a dreamer comes to understand that when he's in the Matrix, which it could maybe be our dreaming state of mind here, that it is totally illusory. And he's like, "Oh, you say I could dodge bullets?" And Morpheus tells him that when he's ready, you won't have to. And in the same way, in a dream, maybe the first time you try flying, like Neo does, he's jumping from building to building. He doesn't quite believe it. And so he falls. And most dreamers, like, they fly for the first few moments, they get so excited they wake up. Or walking through a wall. Like a wall in waking life is fairly solid until you have to like develop this mental flexibility. And dream yoga stretches the mind in that way, in the same way that a physical yoga practice stretches the body so that we can begin to wrap our minds around certain ideas. And over time, we stop believing in this dream wall and we can just walk straight through it.
And yet there's these things that happen in history, like that I believe in. I don't know if you guys believe in, like the Bermuda Triangle. I when I was younger, I would study that, and I would hear all like all the pilots and what they had to say and everything like that. In Peru, the Incas and the portals in their structures. So I somehow got that. What if in reality, there are dreamlike or at least advanced technological slash spiritual things that can happen, portals, you know, that can occur here. And why is it not common, like in dreams where, everything is a portal, even a toilet? But here in this reality, there seems to be like certain like power spots or things that are like blocked away from the public, Antarctica, and all these theories about inner Earth. For me, those were my teenage researching obsessions, and these obsessions actually led me to be open to bridging the dream and what the abstractness of a dream into waking reality. So it was kind of like the Matrix. What Neo was able to do, I believe we could be able to do here. Bending consciousness here would be like, how do we bridge that consciousness in order to bend reality here? That's where my mind is always at.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point there, Jennifer, because it's sort of like, well, if we are in a simulation, what is the purpose of the simulation? If we're in the simulation, is it a game? Is it like a video game? Or is there a reason? Or is there a process that we're going through? And I had this thought once, it came to me, and actually, um, it was spawned from a dream I had like a year ago, which is very based a lot on what we're talking about today, and I'll share it later in our talk. But it got me thinking about what is the reason if we are in a simulation, and I started to think about like the history of humanity and like all the thousands of years of bad behavior that we've been going through, theories of such as like reincarnation and all of these sort of things, and it got me thinking that you know maybe this simulation, maybe we're living in like computer software simulation that needs upgrading, and then it's constantly evolving and rewriting itself and expanding. And then the
Well,
idea of us as like these sort of meat suit sort of like characters, and we have avatars that are in another space which is our consciousness that kind of comes in and kind of comes here into this simulation in order to evolve the program, in order to, you know, make a better version of this planet. So if it's through changing centuries of bad behavior, like um, or ways of doing things. So basically, something so simple as racism or homophobia or sexism, and how it was completely accepted at one point, or people just murdering each other, and that was just not working, and that isn't working. So perhaps we keep coming back into the simulation in order to like upgrade this system so that we're not racist and we're not homophobic and we're not destroying the planet and we're not prone to war.
Are
But
you talking about like time travel? Like we're going back into a simulated program that already has run and then we're trying to fix things back there? Or are you talking about like presently we're
or a
fixing?
spiral.
yeah, it could
Ooh,
be like some kind of spiral, but we come into this simulation, we die, we leave, we come back in order to like we need to upgrade this upgrade the software in order to make it
because
perfect it.
there is a theory about ancestors having left this technology, which is this simulation, and that we are revisiting it, and that's this life. I'm forgetting where I read that. But yeah, my father used to tell me a story that God or some advanced being, because my dad is not the most religious person, but he did believe in science and UFOs. Some advanced being, he said you can call it God, is having this dream, and in this dream, he's everyone. So for me, that concept of me, I am you, we are each other's dream
Mhm.
characters, or that for me is has always been something that I've always thought about, as well as the point of perception. People don't remember when they astral project. People don't remember when they lucid dream sometimes, but those were points of perception. So just because we have this point of perception right now doesn't mean that we don't have other points of perception that we're not remembering. So the only problem I have with computer simulations is, well, not a problem, but I believe that our memory, it's this is like dreaming, awakening. All of that is about remembrance. We're gonna remember uh, why or what this is. So for me, in my dreaming practice, it is all about remembering.
Yeah.
It is about remembering and integrating, because I feel like that is the key to figuring out this theory. And at the same time, not just this theory, but what is this? Why is this life this? And who am I? And who am I really? And beyond that too.
I think a lot of spiritual
Mm.
practice is about remembering who we are,
Hmm.
where we're coming from, why we're here. And I think, I loved playing a lot of role playing games, RPGs, where you create your character and you get to make your own choices, and those choices determine how the game develops. And I don't believe much in fate, and especially through the dreaming practice, like we're constantly presented with choices, and even in life, and that the moment we can bring awareness to them, we become empowered. And I definitely, the life is game thing is an integral part of my whole life philosophy. And that doesn't mean it's not serious or not. Like there's life or death games for sure, but a game in the sense that there are advantages and disadvantages, and we make up what is considered winning and what is considered losing. And a lot of that is handed down to us, but we can like recode it, we can reprogram it, we can reconceptualize our ideas of success or what the game is, and you can choose to play a different game. And Alan Watts talks a lot about this game playing, and he asks, like, is the game you're playing worth the candle? And if it's not, then you have
Hmm.
to play a different game. If you're playing the game for fame, success, and money, and that's burning you out, for example, then play a different game. I'm playing the game for like love, joy, happiness, like community.
But think about it, we are already building avatars. Everybody has a persona on social media.
Yeah.
Everybody, the only difference between reality and social media, which is what we're practicing, how to create different personalities we live through or we're perceived by, is that we can curate those.
Hmm.
We're becoming curators of who we want people to think we are, or the focus of one thing, uh, projected outwardly. But the reality that we're living, you can't curate,
Mm.
unless you walk out and you have your social persona that is also what you present into the
Yeah.
world. But
Yeah.
there's so much that there's so many levels of avatars that we've created that I can see how we could get lost
Yeah,
in our
definitely.
own
Yeah.
avatar, you know?
What one thing that makes me wonder is, like, why do we always think that everything's a game? That life is a game, that relationships are a game, that, politics is a game. Everything's a game. And it's just, maybe it's a rudimentary kind of way of looking at things. If it was an advanced civilization that did make us, it did make this simulation, maybe they're beyond the game, maybe they made this whole thing for different reasons. Maybe it was for consciousness evolution, maybe it was for learning, and maybe it was, maybe it's more educational than we think, instead of like this this game.
Well,
um
game equals play, so that could be like where game and play
Yeah.
um, meet, because consciousness is also at play. But yeah, like literal game. I understand exactly what you're
And
saying
and as far
about
as
consciousness
play
and evolution.
goes, one of my favorite teachers, Jesus, said that in order to enter the kingdom of God, that we must be like children. And that, we can view, entering the kingdom of God as a form of enlightenment, and to, like, not take
yeah,
everything too seriously, and to not get so wrapped up, or to get so caught up in playing the game.
Mm.
I see that, and I know that, the universe is full of the cosmic joke. It's full of high humor, and it could be, obviously a lot of that coming through. I guess I think when I think of the word game, I always think that there's got to be a winner, and I
Mm.
just don't really know if I believe that.
Yeah.
If the whole point of this is someone's going to win and someone's going to lose, and there's a black and white situation, it just feels a little bit more beyond that
Mhm.
in some kind of
Which I think we
capacity.
define.
And I think
Mhm.
as humans, we do define that, and everything's a competition, everything's a goal, there's always a target. And I think it might be the egoic human construct that pulls us towards the idea that this is a game and that someone's going to win and I'm going to win this game. You could even see it in religions. It's like,
Mhm.
with Christianity, it's like, well, I was good, I accepted Christ, or I did this or I did that, did good deeds, therefore I win, I get to go to heaven. Oh, I didn't do those things. Well, you lost the game. You're going to the eternal lake of fire with Satan and all his cohorts.
But within the spiritual and dreaming communities, it's like we're all in this together is kind of like the popular
Mhm.
consensus. So it's a little different than the religions, which is what I like. Like I believe that when I evolve, I see all the people around me also evolving as a
Yeah.
result.
And you
Hmm.
can see it too. The more you rise, those around you rise up too, and are affected by that transcendent sort of atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, again, like the games, we choose and examine the games we're playing, and we can choose. And sometimes I relate this to acting versus improvisation, and that sometimes we're
Mm.
given a script, and you have your lines, and this is the game you're playing. This is the relationship you're in. This is how to do this and that. And realizing that we can toss away that script and begin improvising. And we can make up our own rules. We can toss out the rules that we want. We can toss out what it means to be playing that game entirely and make new ones. And then even
Mm.
in dreaming, sometimes the game is to achieve lucidity. And that doesn't have to, you can help everyone play that game. I mean, we're all playing that game of getting more people aware and conscious of their dreams. And success by that measure is increasing the consciousness of everyone here listening to activate their dreams, to be participating and expanding in their own spiritual development.
But we also have our core beliefs, and not core, maybe certain belief systems that we build everything upon. And one of mine is that we're actually more like, I am almost 100% sure inside, like an intuitive knowing that planet Earth is actually more advanced than people
Mm,
think, and that the technology has already been invented to cure diseases and to fly and cars to fly and all that, but it's not being used. And I don't know what I don't like to get into conspiracy theories because all the people that can explain those things is making us look like victims. I don't know why it's not revealed yet, all the hidden pyramids in the ground, the technology that's being discovered, all those things that I believe are being hidden, it goes hand in hand with my evolution. So the more I uncover my own consciousness, I believe the more these things will be revealed. So it's not like it's against me. Rather, I'm working together to match the level of technology that already exists right now, but that I myself am playing a part in not seeing
Mm.
yet. Hmm.
And so I thought maybe this would be a good point to read this dream that I had, because it's all about the game. It's kind of got an alternate reality sort of feel to it. It's quite funny because I had this dream a year ago. It was actually October 27th, 2018. And it was like a totally surreal full moon dream. So it was a night of a full moon when I had the dream. And it really stayed with me for like a whole week because it was super mind bending. So I kind of woke up from it just like, what is reality? Is this, is this a simulation? That kind of thing. So I'll just read this dream for you guys. I was in some kind of carnival amusement park with booths, rides, and games. There was one game, like a pinball type game, but not a pinball machine. I'll try to describe it as accurately as possible. It was more like a game slash contraption type thing, and I was the game.
Mm.
I saw me, my naked body, hooked up to this weird machine contraption. My body was suspended by metal rods that held me and kept me in place. It was very sci fi aesthetic. I had a weird contraption over my skull holding it into place. My eyes were being held open with another metal contraption, like that character from Clockwork Orange, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
And my mouth had a contraption that was keeping it open. It looked like some kind of open ring gag that you see in BDSM. On the other side of my body in this contraption was the game. A big, colorful clown face with his mouth open. And yellow balls were being fed into the open clown mouth and then into my own fixed mouth, going down what looked like a pinball machine chute. And there were no people playing this game. Like reflecting more on it, I would say that nobody was playing the game. I'm not sure who was playing the game, but it certainly wasn't human beings playing it. It was all otherworldly, other dimension kind of zones. I think it was my own consciousness playing the game and would launch a yellow ball through this tube type pinball thing, and it would go through the open mouth of the clown face, but behind the clown mouth was my mouth, and this would get fed to me. So I
Mm.
was here watching this all unfold. There was a being that I was telepathically speaking with. I didn't see them, but they were explaining everything to me. I was told that my consciousness was separate from my body, and I was viewing the reality of my body immersed in the game. My body had no idea that this was its reality. Um, it was like my body was in a trance or a deep sleep, no doubt deeply immersed in the game. I watched my body. It was breathing deeply. My eyes were darting back and forth like it was seeing or processing something. And then I started to feel really concerned. If my consciousness was outside of my body right now, wouldn't I just die? And then this telepathic voice said, no, 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 don't worry, you won't die. Your consciousness will never die. And then I began to feel really sorry for my body. It was all like bound up in this contraption, and it was unknowingly like stuck in this game. And then the telepathic voice told me, your body might be unaware that it's immersed in the game, but your consciousness knows about the game. so so I started to feel really, really sorry for my body, and I contemplated going back into my body just to give it a little bit of comfort. It went back and forth like this for some time, then something interesting happened. I felt like I lost attachment to my body. I felt free that my consciousness was outside of it. I left the sight of my body in the contraption and I just took off and I began to explore around this carnival. And then I ended up joining two girls in conversation. They were British in their 20s and they were talking about consciousness and trying to work it out. And I said to them, we are all the same consciousness, just experiencing different games. And then I woke up and I was super groggy and my body felt really, really heavy. And that dream stayed with me for like a week because it had such an impact.
I was reminded of something while I was listening to your dream about how the consciousness decided to leave. Um, it reminds me of soul loss or soul retrieval, where a fragment, an aspect of us fragments because it doesn't feel like it fits into your life anymore.
Mm.
And that's the only way that I can process and understand that, why you would leave and that it's okay.
Mm.
But what I don't know, what were you going through during that time?
Um, so that would be October 2018. Can't really call it. I have to look at my journals to see what was going
Yeah.
on.
What kind of thoughts, other beliefs or feelings did you have upon waking up?
I had this real sense of, sort of a loss of ego, slight ego loss, waking up from that. Also, it made me think a lot about death and our
Mm,
attachments to our ego and to our body and to our story and to our life. And it made me think of the dying process, of saying goodbye to all of that, saying goodbye to the body that you've been with and that you've traveled with and journeyed with throughout your lifetime. And also there's this sort of like there's this love for your body as almost a separate thing, and almost like you when say it in my dream that I was feeling sorry for my body, I felt compassion and, oh, I feel bad for you, body, you get so weary and you're old and you're kind of stuck in this sort of reality. um but then there was sort of a process of detachment from that, a detachment from the life, the simulation.
mm,
um and then just going off and exploring the other parts of the carnival, which could be, the other parts of the multiverse or a different simulation.
yeah. And I think it's for me, it's really interesting that the clown face was in front of your face,
Yeah, like this strange
like almost as if it were like
gateway.
a mask
Yeah.
that you're wearing, and that clowns are like, um, we call it clowns are exaggerations of ourselves in a sort of way, exaggerating pain and like very dramatizing.
Mm.
Clowns are dramatizing certain portions of us and reflecting that back to us, and that's part of what makes them either humorous and maybe even horrifying for some people.
Yeah.
And that you're behind that mask that you're sort of wearing, and that like our minds, our souls are receptive to whatever it is our physical bodies are taking in, and that the people outside of us are responding to the masks that we're wearing and not to what's inside. Like the clown face might be something totally different. People are like, oh, fun, a game, but behind that it's like poor yourself just being
It's
like
serious.
torturous almost.
Yeah. Serious
I
business.
actually went into because Tree and I do dream sharing for a couple of years now, and I found when you sent me the dream, and you actually wrote what you thought it was about. Can I read it?
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. This is great
Yeah.
because I don't remember.
Wow.
Tree said, Life is a game, and it is a game of skill which requires perfect timing and concentration. Feeding the balls into the clown's mouth are my direct actions that I take in my life, my choices, my decisions. And with every act or decision I make, I'm attempting at winning the game or getting to the prize, which I think could be the non attachment to the game itself,
Mm.
to my body, in my life, in my ego reality. Free from that is the prize. Basically, death is the prize.
Oh, well, there you go. Thanks for
Wow.
reminding me what my past self had said. And it's funny how I'm sitting here today saying I don't believe that there's like a prize or that there's like a winner or there's a loser. So I've obviously evolved a little bit from that experience.
I knew I would find it.
That's good.
But yeah, I love that what Alejandro said, because even Carlos Castaneda
Hmm.
said, um, the aim is to balance the terror of being alive with the wonder of being alive.
Mm.
So it's not, it's like it's a very fine line of what feels terror. That for me changed everything, because when I read that quote, I was able to remember that in moments when I was existentially horrified. Like change that to wonder.
Yeah.
And in the Toltec tradition, in Carlos Castaneda's book, they do something called recapitulation.
Hmm.
And Sergio Magana, who is also, I think, in London and Mexico,
Mm.
he's practices in the Toltec dreaming tradition. They use masks and mirror work, and you put on this mask, and in front of the mirror, you just recite your life story. And the idea is that over time, the narrative of your life gets transferred onto this mask that you've been wearing. So that when you remove the mask, you kind of free yourself from the narrative, from that weight that you've been carrying. And on top of that, beginning to view yourself more, and yourself begins to appear in the dream. And I've done this before, and it's very it's eerie. And I mention it to people, and they're like aghast. Like some people can't even imagine looking at themselves in the mirror for 5 minutes,
It is creepy.
because it's you're right.
I
That's like
love
the
it.
terror of it.
You start to like get deformed. It's
It's
kind of weird.
great. Yeah, I mean, we all have heard that whole thing like don't look in the mirror if you're on psychedelics, don't look at yourself.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's great. I mean, it's a great reality check too, doing the mirror work. And I'm sure you guys have experienced a lot, even in lucid dream states of all of a sudden you find yourself looking in a mirror
Hmm.
in a lucid
I've
dream.
astral projected into the mirror.
Yeah, and the mirrors serve as portals and
Hmm.
gateways.
Yeah. And even in literature and mythology,
Hmm.
mirrors are, these forever have been portals, gateways.
Hmm. So true.
And that, even the narratives that we're telling ourselves, like, create the reality that we're experiencing. That just
Hmm.
by changing the narrative, just by changing your self talk, you begin to change your reality. You say, oh, well, I can't do this, I can't do that for X, Y, or Z reason. That becomes real. Whether you believe it, you can or you can't, either way, you're right.
True.
And in the Matrix, Neo's like, they're like, I can't believe it. That's impossible. Like, I can't do this. But then he starts slowly believing, and that's how he becomes the one. He's like, wait a minute. I actually do have some power, and I can make this happen. And he does. And he slowly achieves more and more of that power. And by the end of it, he doesn't have to like run and then jump. He just shoom, takes right up and flying.
So easy.
Which brings us to how we create reality. You know, people, I guess, in the spiritual and new age and dream communities, a lot of talk about manifesting and creating. And that is almost that's saying that we have a certain amount of influence with what appears and doesn't appear in our life, how our life evolves in front of our eyes, our desires versus the frequency versus the vibration versus what we're attracting. And I feel like that is the beginning of humanity, um, not taking control, but realizing that they can play the game, quote unquote, in this reality. And that is for me applying almost like dream principles, where you believe you are a lucid dreamer in life, in this game or this simulation or this soul evolution. There's many words I believe for the same thing almost, except in my world it's more soul level consciousness rather than like technology. Although I'm not cutting technology out. I believe technology can grow together, but I almost feel like right now there's not a balance in this world with technology versus the soul. Right now it's probably the opposite. We're not It's like religion versus magic. You know what I mean? It's not yet uh seeing that science and magic and things that you can't explain are still one thing. Unexplained science, some people might say, or what people call science something, I don't know.
And I think magic, but even like praying is like this we were talking last episode a lot about intention.
Mhm.
Yes.
And like setting that intention by either praying to God or,
Mhm.
making a sigil or lighting your candle. That's setting that intention for whatever you want to get. And I think a big part is that it is work. And that is this getting lucid takes like conscious effort. That it's not like an effortless thing that we just shout out into the universe. Like that's just the beginning of it. And that understanding that we are creators, that we have the
Mhm.
power and ability to create and shape our realities, beginning with our own internal worlds, how we view ourselves, how we talk about ourselves, how we present ourselves. And that in turn helps shape the reality of everyone around us, which is like this collective shared dream. And together we're all co creating.
Mhm. Which it comes from the mentality of giving your power back, getting your power back from the regular matrix theories, which is you're the victim. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like when you become a creator of your life, when you live by the concepts of being the creator, of
Yeah.
manifesting your reality, you're getting your power back and you know that you're not trapped, that it's the complete opposite. You can choose which way you view the simulation. Unfortunately, a lot of people view it from a conspiracy
Mm.
way where you're the victim and it's against you and you're being hidden from it or from your
Mhm.
mind. It's being hidden from you.
Hmm.
And I believe that it's the opposite. Like Alejandro said, once you become a creator,
Mhm.
you're co-creating together, and like this you evolve, and you can even evolve out of the game,
Mhm.
possibly, if it's a
Yeah.
game.
Absolutely. We are co-creators, and you can see this just throughout history, for good or for evil, how we've brought about things and co-created things. You could see it in little acts that you see every single day. That someone makes a beautiful piece of music, and then they play it out in the subway platform, and you hear it, and that just like changes things immediately around you.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, does that seem like that's somebody's a victim or a slave of some kind of like simulation? No, they're expressing themselves and they're co-creating within it.
Yeah.
It just seems like there's too many examples um, of beauty, of creativity, of innovation that would say otherwise. Of course, we have all this shitty stuff too. We've got war and we've got political
Mhm.
strife and we've got countless number of negative things, but I think you've got the light and the dark. These things are the push and pull of the co-creation of this, this software. the
Yeah.
software that we're trying to evolve and upgrade.
And we take ownership and responsibility of that, which I
Mhm.
think
Yeah.
is daunting for some people. It's easy to blame something outside of ourselves
Mhm.
and to say, "Oh, well, that didn't happen because of this or because of that, because I have bad luck, because, the universe hates me, because God is punishing me, because
Mhm.
I'm not good enough," whatever it is. And once you start to take that ownership, it's daunting because you suddenly have to it's
Take
you. It's
responsibility.
you. And I had a dream once where, I asked the dream just what it meant.
Mhm.
And I was in this like big old like market library type place and everyone just stopped what they were doing and they just looked at me in dead silence. Like, "Yo, you're the one who's supposed to be decided. We're just here. You're asking us what the meaning is. Like that's on you to decide." And we just stared at each other for like what felt like so long. And I was like, "Well, okay then, never mind." I'm just whoop, and I popped up on out. And that really kind of reaffirmed that it is ultimately like, and that's not to say that reality is entirely in our heads, but our perception of reality can change how we navigate through the world together.
Mhm.
It can help us deal with our problems and view our problems differently. And
Mhm.
that has
Mhm.
such a huge impact on our overall well being.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Also, when we dream, we're always like the center, right? And we view dream and dream interpretation as, oh, it's all a part of me, you know?
Hmm.
But I almost feel like reality slaps you back into a little humble pie where in reality you're not the center, so to speak. You are um, you're just an aspect remembering something, but you know that there's like a grander, much bigger picture that you're not seeing or that is not seeing you. So for me, it's always like that. I always remember it's like as above, so below. As above, so below. That's always
And beyond, I imagine.
yeah, and beyond.
Mhm.
Exactly.
So, this reminds me of something Robert Wagner said about
Mhm.
how our dreaming reality is shaped. And I think this equally applies to our waking reality, that we have our beliefs, our expectations, our focus, our will, our intent, and this X factor, this unknown. And in dreams, this X factor is our unconscious mind creating the dreams, where our conscious mind meets it to play, to interact. And in waking life, that X factor is just everyone else, everything else, the laws of physics that we don't have much control over. And he goes further to say that no dreamer controls the dream in the same way that no sailor controls the ocean. That we just have myself, the sailor, and my boat. And I can choose to set my sail a certain way. I can learn about the waters. I can learn about the winds. I can learn about stargazing, and those things can help me navigate. But that some things will forever be out of our control. But there's still so much we can learn about to work with what is
Mhm.
Mhm.
outside of us. And that we need a healthy amount of ego. Tree was talking earlier about this ego death. And for a long time, I was all about like the disillusion of the ego, just getting rid of the ego
Mm.
completely. But even that is a
Mhm.
balance, of keeping the ego on like a short leash, that the ego lets us navigate. Without an ego, there's no sense of lucidity. You can't say,
Yeah.
I am in a dream.
Mhm.
Well, the ego can't take the wheel, but you can use it as a tool, definitely,
Yeah,
or
if
a
Absolutely.
if you
lens.
absolutely, like, if you did view this as a simulation and a video game, the ego would be one of those little tools in the sideline of your video game that you top up or you, like,
Yeah.
you sort of, like it gets depleted a bit, and you might need it for certain, certain decision making that you're doing throughout your game.
It's like your radar. Bloop, it'll blip,
Bloop,
blip.
bloop.
It's
Yeah.
like looking out, for possible danger and things. And that's when people can live in like a huge state of fear.
Mhm.
Um, like we have like a lot of people we were talking about subjectivity and objectivity. And some people are like way in their feelings. They're overly subjective. And some people are way too stuck in the facts of things. They're much too objective.
Mm.
Mm.
And that when
I get triggered with that.
in what way?
People that go too much with facts.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Well,
like,
they
"Ah!"
become like cold. They become like egoless. There's like no sense that we lose a sort of like sense of humanity and compassion. But on the same time, if we identify too much with our feelings, that creates a lot of like fear, paranoia, and
Mhm.
anxiety. And that there's a lot of discernment that takes place to reckon and balance between the two.
And also the dream, as dreamers, as conscious dreamers, um, we know that in some dreams we don't remember our waking reality. Like you're
Mm.
in this movie
Hmm.
Mhm.
and it's happening and you're all in. You believe that you killed someone and you're running away and the cops are chasing you or whatever it is that you're dreaming, that you're a
Mhm.
little boy when you're actually a woman. And this witch is keeping you in her cellar or whatever nightmare or beautiful dream that you have. It doesn't matter. You believe it. Um, and so that in itself is why a lot of philosophers and spiritual people have pondered on is life, which is reality, the dream or life. And for me, it's always been dream. I don't take it as an illusion or as something that is make believe.
Hmm.
For me, the dream is a form of reality, not different from this reality. It actually falls under what is dream is a much bigger definition to me than just something that happened in my brain while I fell asleep.
Mm.
It's not just like
Yeah.
these images, random images in my head while I dreamed. For me, it's like way, way bigger than that. So when somebody says, "Oh, it's just a dream," that doesn't that
Right.
does not
It still
compute.
makes it like our dreaming experiences are still very valid. And even like
Yeah.
Exactly.
physiologically, you wake up from a nightmare, your physical, real waking heart is beating, you're actually sweating. Those things are very real on a psychological, physiological
Absolutely,
level.
and
They're
that's
tangible.
yes, and that's what makes them, acts and experiences of consciousness. They're just in a
Hmm.
different form. Um,
Perception, form, transformation. Like it's true. Consciousness transforms. We OBE, we lucid dream, we dream, we have waking reality, we have death, we have the other worlds, parallel realities, life. It's like so many aspects that are already out there and that I can't really I don't like to put things into a little box and
Hmm.
tuck it away, which I feel like the simulation theory gets thrown out there like, oh, it's a simulation, so you know
so if this is a simulation, then like how do we navigate the simulation? What
Mhm.
what what do you guys think?
I
What do you
mean,
guys
I
think?
believe.
I believe in a thing called love. And just a little bit of my heart. But
Oh
no,
my
but
god.
um
Go
again,
ahead,
like
brother.
the conscious, so the Om symbol in yoga that looks like the three with like the crescent and like the little point up there
Yeah.
has a lot of meanings, but one of them is symbolizing the waking state, the dreaming state, the sleeping
Mhm.
state, and this point of consciousness above that of transcending all of those things.
Mhm.
And so, by lucidity, which we do in the dream practice to sleep yoga, dream yoga, bardo yoga, through death. And that so much of what we're doing, all of what we're doing, is just mindfulness. And with that awareness, we can move consciously and take more ownership of our lives and the choices that we're making instead of going on autopilot.
So if this is a simulation, and I'm in this sort of meat suit avatar thing, and my consciousness has decided to come here to play out, to be in the simulation. I think I would probably check myself and go, okay, how can I upgrade
Hmm.
my system here? Okay, so what old programs are running through me right now? oh, there's old programs of like, you can't do this, you're not good enough. Maybe there's old programs of fears and phobias. And so for me, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to upgrade those things. I'm going to rewrite those programs in order to be the best sort of version of myself, the best avatar I can be out there, in order for me to help upgrade the entire system here, which is upgrading the consciousness of everyone. It's also like evolving the consciousness of everyone, and it's also like, making this planet a better place, not just like in a consciousness kind of way, but also like the physicality of this planet too.
Mhm.
um I guess that's what I would do. I would first check with myself and make sure that my avatar is working the best it can be, instead of just running the same old programs over and over.
Right. You
I'd
have
be
to
like,
choose where your skill points go into.
yeah, I'd be like,
Where
where's
you're
it?
gaining your experience points.
Yeah, I'd be going like, where's the tree 0.50, like let's make like a better version of tree, like,
Yeah.
instead of a version that was like last year, or the old model. I guess that's what I would do, but it would be everyone's involved in it as well, like we were talking about earlier. Like when one person rises, we all kind of rise, and we all have
Yeah.
this sort of contagious effect on everyone. And then, yeah, so what about you, Jenny?
Well, I'm already doing what I would do if this was a simulation, and that is to spread awareness of dreams
Yeah.
and conscious dreaming, because I believe that dreams are that door or that portal that will either get you through, out, or evolve, or anything. I almost believe that dreaming is the key, even in way not, and I'm not talking about in sleep. I'm talking about dreaming in sleep and while awake. I always feel like I'm infiltrating reality, that the CIA or any forces that be are not searching for dreamers. And if they are, I almost feel like we're getting away with it. We're getting away with spreading consciousness through this dreaming, big umbrella. But I once had a dream that I was being investigated, actually, just to see how I was doing. And this lady looked at me and she winked her eye, and it rippled. The wink rippled at me, and the ripple consciousness download said, "Don't worry, keep doing what you're doing." And she
Mm.
left. And I remember thinking, oh, even in what people would think is like the other side, people against consciousness evolution, if there is such a thing, even there's infiltrators working for consciousness, you know? So I'm too positive about this shit. I feel like the people that are on my team or tribe, so to speak, they're everywhere, even in the dark, what people consider the dark side, because they're also working with us. So it's more of a holistic point of view. But yeah, dreams, teaching dreams, talking about dreams to everybody, not just people that like dreams. I will teach dreams to non-dreamers all day long if I can, wherever I work, office space, banks. How are you, Jenny? Good. But I had this weird dream, and they start talking to me. Oh, me too. I dream, and I am
Yeah.
spreading dreams everywhere.
Yeah,
That's how I deal.
it's kind of liberating, right? To think of, if this is a simulation, then yeah, like we can play with it. We can choose our own adventure
Yeah.
and
Mm.
have fun with that. Well, thank you all for sharing. And I think it is time to go into a tarot pull by Tree.
Okay, guys. Yeah, let's see what the cards bring us after
Mhm.
this very interesting discussion about, are we living in a simulation?
Yeah.
So I pulled the King of Pentacles.
Ooh.
So what are we going to say about the King of Pentacles, other that he's very financially secure? This is like sugar daddy territory, guys.
Sugar daddy.
Are we going to be like the sugar babies?
Or even pentacles, right? Being this material, like, world, this physical world.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It's
And king, like, being
security.
like the ownership of like this physical world.
It totally is. It's got all that connection. It's ruled by the astrological sign of Taurus, which is a very earthy sign, and it's a very earthy realm. So we're talking about um, a lot of earthbound energy. There's a lot of security with the King of Pentacles, and a lot of abundance as well. Wealth, business, leadership. These are all the attributes associated with the King of Pentacles.
Improving oneself.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and the generous, like, generosity, right? Because you already have wealth, you've worked hard for it, and you're willing to give it, spread that wealth, so to speak, whether that wealth is consciousness or that wealth be material
Mm.
life or living, abundant in
Yeah.
living, abundant in life. So
Absolutely.
also, it's like he's like the protector, right? Like a big father
Oh
kind of
yeah,
figure. I
he's
almost feel
the
like you're in good hands.
he is. He's King Midas. Basically,
Mhm.
anything that he touches will turn to gold. He's also very confident and helps, create opportunities and growth for those around him all the time. So
Mm.
yeah, prosperity, all these sort of attributes
Yeah.
associated with the
And I
King of
think that's one of the
Pentacles.
ways to get out of this like fear survival mode
Yeah.
is by when you sort of give things away, we sort of become to understand that we have abundance. And
Mm.
to mention the homie Jesus again, twice in one podcast,
Woohoo.
where
Jesus,
but
Jesus.
but he, tells everyone to bring like a fish and some bread, and suddenly like we can feed everybody
Mm.
by like when we bring what we have to the table, then we all get to eat, so to speak.
And if
Tasty.
if this card were reversed, because I like to take each card with their dark side as well, what would be the reverse?
Well, because it's ruled by Taurus, I think stubbornness would be a really big um, character
Corrupt,
aspect.
corruption, right?
Yeah, corruption, it would be like obsession with the material realms, obsession with money, very materialistic, where you become almost like spiritually bankrupt because of all of the attention is becoming more material than it is
And
spiritual.
therefore, each side, see, for me, they're not that's not separate from what we just covered, which was the good side of it, so to speak.
Hmm.
So if there are this is how I view life. If there is any negativity, like the darker, the more light I feel it has within, because I can see its counterpart, its other side. So even that's why I don't get too distraught with horrible things that happen on Earth or in the
Mm.
simulation, because I almost feel like that is just pointing the finger at the other side as well. Like it's there. It's just reverted right now. It's inverted or whatever however you say it.
Yeah,
It's like a mirror image.
it is, and then it gives you a chance to look at that aspect and say, "Oh, I'm feeling pretty spiritually bankrupt here. What can I do about it?"
Right. So I feel like having the mentality that you're in good hands and that to see the abundance of where you're headed. I feel like that's the key to holding that as a belief will be the key to building upon how you build and how you create your life. But of course, with not ignoring the other aspects, but rather working through them, working hard so that you can achieve that stability and consciousness and or higher status or higher whatever it is,
Mhm.
material and spiritual.
And the
Absolutely.
card is abundant, right? The king is like
Mhm, mhm.
surrounded by like grapes and leaves and flowers. He's just like sitting amongst all this stuff that he has.
Yeah.
And I had a teacher, my first yoga teacher, Gabriel Halpern here in Chicago, told me that the way we step into our king and queenly powers is by giving blessings to others.
Yes.
Absolutely. This is the generous spirit of the King of Pentacles. It's not holding on, it's not stingy, It's flowing and it's quite generous.
Oh, great. That's all we have for today. Thank you all for joining us in this episode of The Dream Freaks. You can follow us on all major social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify. Stay tuned for all sorts of updates and announcements and special treats.
And if you guys would like to support us on Patreon, you can search The Dream Freaks on Patreon and find us there. We'll be rolling out a lot of fun incentives and perks for those who help donate to our podcast.
Yeah.
We hope you all have a good night, sweet dreams, and stay lucid.